Welcome to the June 14th, 2022 Comox Valley Recreation Commission meeting. We'd like to acknowledge that we are having this meeting on the traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, who are the traditional keepers of this land. We have the management report for receipt. Thank you. Dr. Hillian and Hamir second. Any questions on the management receipt? Today we are dispensing with half of the items on that as part of our agenda, which will only leave 2 left as we close out the terms. Dr. Hamir.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question about the turf field. I think I got overexcited when I saw an announcement about something about the turf field. So would staff mind just describing where we're at in terms of, have we hired someone to do this study? Are we narrowing in on sites?
Mr. Chair, under item number 4, the recreation studies and assessments, I think staff will be providing an update or some reflection on for you with respect to that. And if the questions aren't answered in their reports, could be entertained then.
Thanks, that's fine.
Thank you. Any further questions? There being none, all in favor? Thank you. And that passes. Next is reports. We have changes to the financial assistance for recreation services program for receipt. Dr. Hillian, in a second. Thanks, Dr. Swift, and over to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair and Commissioners. And Susan Bullock is here, Manager of Recreation Programs, to present this report and answer your questions.
Okay. So the CVRD currently provides the play program to adult CVRD residents that are in need of financial assistance for recreation services. The CVRD has also partnered with our member municipalities to offer a similar interagency program called LEAP, which is Leisure for Everyone Accessibility Program, for youth aged 18 and under for a 1-year trial that started this January 2022. Low-income residents can also currently access the City of Courtenay's RAP program, the Town of Comox's TRIP program, and the Village of Cumberland's FAIR program if they live in those member municipalities. Registration processes for these programs have also recently been streamlined, and there's only one application form for all of the programs. The form only has to be filled in once, and then we send it to the other municipalities on the client's behalf. However, the form and process can still be further improved and simplified, which is one of the goals of the next phase of this project. So the program changes. We're looking at renaming the Financial Assistance for Recreation Services program permanently to LEAP starting in January of 2023. Partnered with our member municipalities to offer this program to all ages on a non-trial basis. We would further simplify the form and application process and update the program on an annual basis in conjunction with the other municipalities. The proposed changes for the CVRD are relatively minor, while representing more substantial changes in practice for the other municipalities. The CVRD will still continue to provide the same services to financially challenged families and individuals. And this includes 52 free drop-ins per family member per year, plus 1 free registered program and 4 programs at 50% off per family member per year. If approved, this program will also include, starting in January, 52 free drop-ins at the City of Courtenay, Town of Comox, and the Village of Cumberland recreation facilities. These program changes will make recreation services more accessible for low-income individuals and families. They can choose to use the recreation facility that best meets their needs, not just the one that is in their boundary area. So some stats for you. The CVRD typically provides about 750 play memberships a year. That was our pre-COVID number. We're anticipating it getting back there again. And of those members, they swipe their membership card or have a drop-in approximately 6,200 times a year. This means that each person that receives a play membership or each family member only accesses their swipe membership or uses their visits the facility an average of 8 times per year. So although some families might come 52 times, some families might only come twice. And that means an average of 7 play customers using the facility per day. So with only 17 families using it per day or 17 individuals, this will not affect our operating cost. The registered play program participants typically receive about $20,000 in total discount registrations a year for average, and about 50% of that is for swimming lessons. Any questions?
Any questions for staff? Director Kentler.
Thank you. Yeah, just a comment that I'm really happy to see that we can expand the program. And we started this at the beginning of the term, trying to get a universal pass for the region and allowing low-income families more access. And I think it's more important now than ever with the rising cost of living in so many ways. You know, a lot of families often have to choose between, you know, their basic staples and extracurricular activities like recreation. So I'm happy that that we can give low-income families the opportunity to have free access to, or at least discounted access to our facilities as a region. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Dr. Hamir?
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to echo what Commissioner Kettler just mentioned. You know, this has been wonderful to see the staff, you know, embrace this and streamline it and enable citizens across the community to be able to access this this funding. My question, though, is more around, you know, the percentage of low-income families who are actually using it as a percentage of those that could be. You know, I see that it's still small, and I'm wondering if staff have any comment as to why you think we don't have quite the uptake that could potentially be there, and if you know, I can understand that, you know, the more families that use this program, the less income that comes to the regional district. But I'm hoping that that is not part of the decision making of promotion, that we really do want to see more families use our services, and would love to see a higher number than the ones that we saw using the program. So maybe staff could comment on that.
Sure. We work with other agencies to social services, the Friendship Center, Multicultural Society to help promote this program. And they often register people in groups and will bring in like 30 registrations at one time. And they will get the membership cards to the person, but then that person has to be able to find a way back to the facility on their own in order to come in and get their membership card. So we are trying to reach out and expand, and every year we try and get more people on the program. But transportation and even just the cost of a bathing suit or the mitts and the gear that go with your kid that's constantly growing is a barrier for people to be able to use the facility. So although admission is a barrier, so is transportation and other items, but we are definitely looking to expand and take every opportunity we can to partner with other agencies to encourage it.
Great, good to hear. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further comments, Dr. Hillian?
Thanks, Chair, and I really appreciate the work staff have done to make this happen. I do recall, though, that when this issue really originally came up at the start of the term, it was in response to individuals who had been requesting the possibility of a recreation pass for the general public that allowed access to all facilities. And I'm just wondering if staff have looked into any of that through this process of working on the one that provides for people with a lower income.
Great question, staff.
Through the chair, yes, the same group that's working on the play LEAP changes is also the group that's working towards developing a regional recreation pass. So working with the group and refining as we go through the process, there are lots of challenges working with the financial end and different departments. So the plan is in January is to do not a huge survey, a small survey with the public to find out specifically what are they looking for. So you have a better idea if it's a weight room only, are people wanting it to access all the facilities or two facilities at a time, which helps determine price. So once this program Play and Leap is underway, we've had a chance to work through all the kinks of how we all work together. Then the plan is to go hard starting in January.
Thanks. I just wanted to make sure that the idea hadn't disappeared. Appreciate that.
Thank you. That's an excellent point. Any further questions or comments on this? There being none, all in receipt. And that passes. There's a recommendation. Amir and Maury, that the Comox Valley Recreation Commission support the proposed change to the Comox Valley Regional District Financial Assistance for Recreation Services Program, starting this coming January, to include all ages with a permanent program in the Leisure for Everyone Accessibility Program. Any comments? There being none, all in favor? And that passes. That's a great leap forward. Next one, we have adult ice use and allocation engagement summary for receipt. Over to staff.
Thank you. And Susan Bullock will present this report as well.
The Comox Valley Regional District recently completed an adult ice use and allocation engagement process to help ensure there are opportunities for ice activities for as many adult residents as possible, and that a full complement of programs and services are offered. So a bit of background, there was a need for this project. There was demand to expand the Comox Valley Hockey League program. There had also been multiple requests to look at changing the existing ice allocation policy. Staff also believed that residents were not currently using the ice because the services or programs that they were interested in either weren't offered or at a time that worked for them. And then finally, the 2017 Indoor Recreation Facility Master Plan also indicated a possible need for additional ice. And the engagement plan was approved by the Recreation Commission in the fall of 2021. And the public engagement took place this year between January and March and was divided into two phases. The first phase was an outreach to the general public, which was an online survey that was open to all residents. The second was a more detailed discussion with current ice user groups and included 2 focus groups and 2 group surveys. The general public consultation results. We had 1,194 surveys completed, and that is actually, we were very happy with that result. And 70% identified as current facility users. So even though it went community-wide, 70% of them were current users. The most popular activities were Everyone Welcome Skates and drop-in hockey. And there was a very strong interest in the creation of additional Everyone Welcome Skates, drop-in hockey, increased access to adult rental times for hockey, and expanded hockey league opportunities. The user group consultation process. So we had 35 people that participated in the 2 workshops and the surveys. At the time, there were 4 scheduling options that were presented for consideration. One was rotating schedule, whereas either weekly or monthly, prime time and non-time users could alternate ice time, and 60% were totally opposed to that option. The lottery system, 55% were totally opposed to that option. The next one, voluntary and mandatory adaptation. That would be adaptations to the current schedule as operationally required to make room for youth and public programs and new services and user groups. Only 25% were totally opposed to that change. And the 4th option was incentivize late night use. That would be reduced rental rates significantly to encourage voluntary late night ice selection. 19% were totally opposed. So many of the current adult ice users, particularly those that were long-standing users with prime time ice, were resistant to any changes to the ice allocation policy, but were aware that some change was going to be needed. Their preferred scheduling tools were obviously the voluntary mandatory adaptation and the incentivized late night use. So after we narrowed it down to those two options, when we worked with the groups, we came up with some further suggestions and kind of tailored those. Some of the things we looked at were increasing coordination of donated spots. So things like traveling teams would share a spot rather than alternating. Reduce groups to only being permitted to rent a maximum of 1 ice slot a week. And creating a third rental category for the incentivized use of late night ice. So some engagement outcomes. The user groups were reassured at this meeting that changes to the regular season schedule for the next season for the 2022-2023 season would be minor, just because it's fast approaching. Larger changes like complete user swaps with 19 wing or the addition of adding those requested public skating and drop-in times at current prime times would not be considered until the 2023 or 2024 season. Updating the Comox Valley Recreation Complex's fees and charges bylaw to add the late night rental option. And the results of the engagement process also led to some changes to public programs. So the addition of 4 extra CDHL hockey teams. We added a trial weekly senior skate and a late night drop-in hockey program. Changes in times for some of the existing programs, and the addition of a stick and puck, which is a casual hockey skills practice, and a new pair hockey skill development program for youth. This year, staff also worked closely with 19 Wing Recreation Department staff to try and make our best coordinated use of the Comox Valley ice for the upcoming season. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions on the report? There's no recommendation on this one, so staff is seeking feedback. Director Moore.
Obviously, I'm happy to see this report and the work that's been done to look at the ice allocation. I was actually really thrilled to see how many people did the survey. That's amazing. That might even beat our food truck survey in Courtney. I don't know. So the number of folks who filled out the survey that were current users was about 70%. Do we have any, I guess, any kind of breakdown with that other 30% in terms of feedback for, would they all be lumped in the feedback that we received about what they'd like to see in terms of extra public skating or whatever? Like, do we have any breakdown in what that 30% was looking for?
So the group that didn't attend the user meetings, they still had the opportunity to participate in the surveys. So they were all invited to the user meeting,
Right.
Just only 35 came. So they had the opportunity to do the surveys. We had slightly higher feedback from the survey than from attending the meetings. And the concerns were generally, don't make any changes.
Okay. I guess I'm just trying to get a sense of, for people who are kind of feeling like they're left out of, they're not already in there, they don't have their foot in there, how many of them were able to actually provide feedback?
They were given the opportunity. One of the comments I had heard is, I have the worst ice time as it is now. I can't get any worse. So
Right.
they may not have chose to attend thinking it won't help. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Thank you.
Yeah.
Director Grant.
Yeah, speaking of guys that have the worst ice slot, what do you think of the ice slot, Doug? Anyway, no, this is I'm really glad you guys took this on because it's a contentious issue and it's a really tough issue. And I think that the only real way to solve it is to build more ice surfaces. So is there any thoughts of that? I know at one point there's been groups over the years that have come looking and with proposals of building more ice surfaces. And I think if you had one more slot, you could probably alleviate almost all of this problem. I know this is not the right time in the economic history of British Columbia to be looking at that, but I mean, that's ultimately the solution.
Thank you. Well, you didn't propose a museum with it, so over to staff.
More ice was obviously something that we heard repeatedly throughout this process, but I believe that's a consideration for the future to look further into.
Oh, is Doug coming to the table?
Yeah,
Thanks. Through the chair, just on the information around more ice and in general, more facilities. You hear about a bit from Jennifer later, but we were really focused on moving that to the 2023 strategic planning process and discussing that amongst all the other priorities the Recreation Commission is going to face. Undoubtedly, we have studies from 5 years back, 2017, saying we needed a new ice surface then. Population's growing since then. We're really concerned about the minor hockey growth. Kindergarten classes continue to expand each year. So it's going to be a challenging conversation in 2023, and we're really hoping that it's one piece of that to be considered.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Doug. It's through this term we focus on asset management a lot for our existing facility. And as per today, there's a lot of reports coming down in the next 6 months to a year. Dr. Hamir?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on the comment about new ice. If I misunderstood, just 2 weeks ago, we had a presentation about our corporate greenhouse gas emissions and pointed to our facilities as being some of the largest. And if we are trying to cut back our emissions by 50% in 8 years, I don't know how the two jive. So I'm just putting that out there. There's maybe another layer, unless Doug has a secret way of building ice that is climate mitigating. Have you got carbon in the ice or any comments from staff?
Yeah, again, I'll just quickly comment on that. As technology advances and as we look at methane recovery from landfills and other options in the future, I think it's one of those questions as a community grows, what your community wants to desire and how you want to attract residents and meet the basic needs. And layering the GHG emissions on that is going to be a big part of that conversation, undoubtedly. And, you can look at options to offset those GHGs by also heating existing facilities somewhere else. So you have kind of a net zero loss. You're still growing in GHGs, but then you're offsetting, for example, a school or another major facility nearby by providing that heat that's generated. As we've done with the heat reclaim process, we were heating our sports center pool from one of our rinks. So there's a lot of balancing acts there. And again, we're going into the strategic planning process, but I think it's a good time to start thinking about it. Because I think these are the questions we're going to have to grapple with as we move towards that strategic planning process. So the sooner we kind of get those ideas in our mind and start thinking about them, the better off we'll probably be.
Great comment, Dr. Hamir. Dr. Grief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I don't see a problem. We can just squeeze it right in there between the indoor soccer pitch and the agriplex. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Grief. That was well registered. Dr. Kettler.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think I would probably get in trouble from alternate director Sullivan if I didn't bring up the outdoor temporary rink that he's been proposing for a few years. We attended a trade show where this new technology was being displayed, that you could have a temporary rink through most of the winter months, and without all the building and all the GHG emissions of building a new building. So I guess there is a sort of in-between solution. It would provide ice surface for people in the winter months and be removable for the summer months. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. A lot of good observations on that, and we don't have a nice study like we're doing for the track and field. I mean, we know we're at capacity with usage, but can staff comment what next steps we could see on the ice front over the coming months, or would you just save it for the strategic session next year?
Jennifer's report coming up.
Hey, let's wait for Jennifer's report coming up. All in favor of receipt? And that passes. Thank you. There's no recommendation, but unless you would like to make one. That's all good. So for receipt, recommended updates to Schedule A for Comox Valley Recreation Complexes, schedule fees and charges bylaw.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners, and once again to Susan Bullock to present this report.
So the fees and charges for the Comox Valley Recreation Complexes are usually reviewed every 3 years. The existing fee schedule is in effect until August 31st of this year, and it's due to be updated. Okay. So for admission rates, staff compared the CVRD admission rates to the 2022 Vancouver Island Survey of Fees and Charges. The CVRD admission rates are generally lower than average when compared to similar Vancouver Island facilities. When we looked at similar facilities, we looked at facilities north of Victoria and ones that had both pools and arenas to have some fair comparables. Staff focused on making annual incremental increases where possible versus larger increases every couple of years. Staff aim to reach the midpoint by 2025. However, that being said, other communities are also all increasing their fees and charges by law this year. So it is possible we may still end up being on the lower end for fees. Staff are recommending a general 3% increase for the next 3 years, 3% a year for the next 3 years. So our rental rates are also on par with other similar Vancouver Island facilities. In order to stay on par, a general 3% increase for the next 3 years is recommended, with the exception of prime time ice. The proposed 3% increase per year is still lower than the estimated increase on the Victoria BC Consumer Price Index. The prime time ice, 5% increase for the first year and then 3% for the 2 following years is what is recommended. Primetime ice is in very high demand, and this larger increase for the first year was done in conjunction with the development of that late night ice rate. As mentioned in the report earlier, the development of a new ice rental fee for late night ice was also recommended. It came out through the ice use and engagement process. Implementation of the scheduling tool requires a large reduction in the cost of renting the ice. The proposed late night rates are 50% cheaper than prime time ice. Even at these rates, some of the users kind of admitted they're not sure that would make it worthwhile to move, but they did feel that it might make it more attractive for the people that were unfortunately, due to public programming, maybe displaced a bit later. This rate would apply to all rentals that start at 10:30 p.m. or later. And at the moment, there's only one user group that falls in that category. But we are hoping for more. So probably the largest change, the proposed Schedule A, are the changes to the advertising section. Staff proposed a general 3% annual increase for the next 3 years, similar to the other increases, but the wording was changed to allow for all youth sport group users to sell advertising as a fundraiser. Previously, only the Glacier Kings were permitted to, or provided this opportunity. User groups would now have greater advertising sales options as well. Previously, the Glacier Kings could only sell the large rink board ads to a maximum of 10 per year. All youth group users would now be able to sell all of the facility advertising options we have in place, including pool banners, with the exception of the Zamboni ads, score clock ads, and the large on ice ads. In general, the youth sport sale prices are 40% less than our regular advertising rates. So should the youth group sell the advertising for the regular rate, they would keep the difference in value. Okay. These changes will help ensure the fees are meeting operational needs and maximizing facility usage while balancing community benefit and user affordability. Any questions?
Thank you. And there will be a recommendation to adjust the bylaw amendment. Dr. Maury?
Delay still. I guess one of them was around staffing for late night ice. I'm just wondering if it creates any difficulties with, offsetting the cost of having staff on later at night with that savings for people. That's one question. I have another one. Thanks.
Okay, through the chair. We already have staff on site. That is the time they typically clean all the change rooms and such. So what would happen is the last 2 change rooms of the evening wouldn't be cleaned that night. They'd be cleaned by the morning crew the next day.
Okay, so
no additional costing unless they go rent past 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And then I was curious about just bringing up the advertising piece. what are our protocols around advertising? And I bring this up because it did happen with a group of young, well, it was with the schools where there was some controversy about one of the advertisers that was approved. I just wondered what kind of control or protocols we have around who's permitted to advertise in our facilities. Thanks.
Through the chair, there are rules in place of what the advertising can and can't be. And then we would be organizing the groups to know who is going to be making what sales. And then finally, they all have to be approved before they get posted.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for the question.
And family oriented was the best one.
We have Dr. Cole Hamilton online.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks so much for this report, Lisa. I see a lot here to like, and I just had one small question, which was about the increase in admission, general admission. And I was noticing in most of the categories, we are, as was noted in the report, below the average, and therefore the 3% increase would make sense to get back into the average range. There's one exception to that, which is seniors, where our admission price is already a little bit above the average. I was wondering if any thought had been given to perhaps excluding the seniors admission from the 3% increases, given that it's already as I said, slightly above the average for the user group we looked at.
It's still within the range and not the most expensive option. And in this process, I contacted some of the facilities that we're using as comparables. So by looking at our organization, you can see youth were a higher priority in a sense than seniors based on pricing, and some facilities have done that differently. Part of the reason is one facilities is all of their seniors programming is actually run through another organization, so they have relatively low senior drop-in. And in our case, we have quite a large number of senior drop-in. So we just went going across the board because we're still within the range and still identifying, I guess, youth as being our priority for the largest discounts.
I can certainly see that for youth. So was I understanding you correctly that it's sort of we provide a somewhat higher level of service than some of the comparables for the senior level, and therefore the fact that we're slightly above the average doesn't seem to be of concern for that reason? Is that roughly it?
Similar to the city of Courtenay that has like the Evergreen Club, where it's another organization that oversees it. So that is in one of the facilities what they're doing. And when I contacted another organization slightly further south, they're looking at increasing it. Their fee bylaw represents previously seniors were, just they have different policies and how they rate seniors versus youth.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for the clarity. I certainly agree with the youth focus, but the senior rates make a lot more sense given that context. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Cole Hamilton, and thanks to staff for including the comparative table to the other regional districts and surrounding. Any further questions on this one? There being none, all in favor of receipt? And that's unanimous. And anybody wants to move the recommendation? Dr. McCollum and Dr. Grant. Any comments or questions on the recommendation? There being none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you very much, staff, for this one. And with that, we're going to move to the highly anticipated recreation studies and assessment for receipt. Thank you. And over to Jen.
Yes, Jennifer Zabidin will present this report and answer your questions.
Great.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm going to back this up. There we go. Staff are here today to provide the Comox Valley Rec Commission with an update on current recreation initiatives and studies and to describe how they will help to inform future programming and infrastructure planning for recreation facilities in the Comox Valley Regional District. In 2019, the Commission identified a long-term plan for recreation infrastructure and sustainable delivery of these services as a strategic priority for the CVRD Recreation Department.
So there are 4 initiatives currently underway that will inform the identification of priorities for future investments by the Commission. So the first one that was completed in May of 2021 was the Comox Valley Exhibition Grounds and Stonehenge Site Conceptual Site Study, working with urban systems to identify short, medium, and long-term options for the implementation of the site master plan, including the incorporation of potential economic opportunities and actions to support growth in the agriculture sector. So that final report was received in May of 2021. We have the Aquatic Strategy, so that's working in collaboration with the City of Courtenay to identify service levels and aquatic facility requirements for a 25-year horizon. The final report is expected in December of 2022. However, staff will be back in July to provide a report of what we heard. So the first phase of the stakeholder and public engagement portion. Staff will be back to provide a what we heard update from there. And then we would like to run through the outdoor pool season and then continue in the late fall with one more round of public engagement with the staff coming back with a final report in December of 2022. The next one that we have on the go, which will be this summer, is the engineering of the ice rink. So before we can think of a second sheet of ice, we need to think about our current 2 sheets of ice and what condition they are in. So Arena 1 was built in 73, 74 and opening in 75. And we have to really be in tune to the age of that facility. We do have a floor that is shifting and is a little bit off balance. And so what that means right now for the staff is when you flood the ice, you might put 3 inches of water on the right-hand side of the arena, where you may put 1 3/4 inches on the left side. Generally, when you build an ice arena and you keep ice in it for the season or for the whole year, underneath the ice rink, what starts to happen is there's a frost buildup. And then depending on what the climate does outside, that frost buildup will stay frosty or it will melt underneath. And as it does that, when it melts and then freezes and melts and freezes, the ground will upheave and eventually it pushes the floor up. And that's where we are with the Arena 1. So the next step there is we would like to have an engineer do an assessment on the floor, on the HEVO, and to see how much longer of a lifespan that we have with that arena. And we'll also do Arena 2 while we're there. It's a very short process. It's a very simple thing to sort out. Once we have those answers, then we certainly want to start venturing down the path of looking at also the level of use of the current 2 arenas. And with all of that information, we'll be bringing that forth in the April or the spring of 2023 for the strategic planning to provide as much information to the Rec Commission to make some informative decisions. Then we have the sports field study. So working with the municipal partners in the School District 71 to assess the current inventory, conditions, and allocation of sports fields in the Comox Valley and ensure current needs and future growth can be accommodated. The final report is expected in December of 2022. So currently where we are at is the contractor. The contract has been awarded. The contractor started June 3rd. We've gone with RC Strategies, which is the same contractor that's doing the Aquatic Strategy for us, different department of that contractor. And they're currently taking on all the information that staff provided for all of the background on current field use, current field costs, stakeholder information, and staff have completed a public survey as well. All that information is being funneled forward to the contractor. They'll be doing an assessment on all of our fields. Again, the fields do have to be utilized for the entire season for the contractor to understand the condition of these fields. And so the example I'll take is the ball diamonds at the City of Courtenay Lewis Park. So there's slow pitch and fast pitch and various ball sports on those fields. And that summer season has to be done to understand what the condition of those fields are. All of the school fields right now are in somewhat very good condition because of the rain that we've had. So again, we want to get through the summer where those fields are being used for flag football, rugby, soccer, and hockey, field hockey, and a few other sports to see what the condition of them are by the end of the summer. That's really the best way to get an understanding of the condition of those fields. And then from there, once the contractor has the understanding of the fields, the next steps will be looking at various locations of where there's a potential for new fields or expansions on current fields. So that process is fairly early on in its stages. We're really excited to see what all of these studies come back with. These reports and their findings will inform the Commission's strategic planning session for the spring of 2023. So the goal to identify priorities for capital improvements that meet the Commission's vision of recreation. And I'm going to switch my slide, getting a little too excited. There we go. These priorities for the capital improvements that meet the Commission's vision of recreation and services for the future. And what we want to include is there's identify priorities in terms of new fields, new pools, or the upgrading of existing fields and or facilities, including ice arenas. Setting high-level strategic direction, identification of priorities and tactical recommendations for continued service using existing or new infrastructure. Ensuring future funding maximizes the investments made in asset management upgrades and provides the information needed to create work plans and support grant readiness. Identifying ways to reduce GHG emissions while recognizing the growing demands for additional facilities is evidenced by the growth in the region since many of the facilities were first built. And acknowledging limitations of regulatory obligations, servicing and environmental factors, example on the exhibition grounds floodplains, or on overall facility and site planning. So from here, and in closing, what are our next steps? So this funnel is not in any particular order when you do look at that funnel. I'm just trying to indicate that everything is going to land in 2023 to the Rec Commission for strategic plan, planning the priorities. So again, next steps, staff will be presenting what we heard, a report, which is part of the during the phase of the public and stakeholder engagement report of the Aquatic Strategy, the first phase. So that will be coming forth in July. And then lastly, all of the findings for the sports field study, aquatic strategy, the arena assessment and other work will undergo a financial review, and then we'll be prepared to present to the Commission in early 2023 to be considered as part of the spring strategic planning process. Some of the key things that we want to really make sure that we understand is we want to make sure that all these processes are done as thoroughly as possible. We want to do our due diligence and make sure we really understand each one of these areas so that when we come forth for the Spring Commission strategic planning, staff can provide as much information as possible for the Recreation Commission to provide their vision back to the staff in any direction. So on that note, staff are ready to take some questions.
Thank you, staff. Dr. Hamir.
Here. Thanks, Jennifer. Great report. Question around some of the short-term goals for the exhibition ground. Just wondering the relocation of the teaching and education plots to Stonehenge. Is that something that that the CBRD would bear the cost of, or who would be paying for that move?
At this time, we're still trying to work out what the financial steps are going to be, but primarily when things are done on the exhibition grounds, they would fall a fair amount to the responsibility of the CBRD.
Okay. And I'm just wondering if any of the users have been informed about the move, the current users of those plots.
So at this time, after we completed the conceptual site design, we provided the opportunity for each user to come in and we would meet with them and run through it. We don't have anything current and substantial at this time that this is going to be moving here or there. We've just earmarked some things in the financial plan so that we can start moving forward with some things on the exhibition grounds. However, at this time, the plan is not concrete. There's still a little more things that need to be sorted out. You know, we need to have a better understanding on some of the costs, that while the conceptual site plan may indicate this is a rough cost, having gone through COVID, costs have really changed dramatically. So staff are going to have to do a little more further research on what all the costs are for anything before we actually, you know, dive down and deep into the plan. So currently the phase the staff are at is working on the sign strategy for the exhibition grounds.
Right. Is the plan still to replace those education plots with parking? Is that still in what the intended use of that space will be?
So at this time, staff are not moving forward with that conceptual site plan until we've completed the actual strategic planning session.
Okay.
There are some things that staff are trying to address. And as an example, the farmers market field, trying to get an understanding of what it will take to get that field to be of good quality. But trying to get more of what I'm going to call low-hanging fruit, like the signage. That's a big one for us right now, big priority.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We'll go online to Dr. Cole Hamilton first.
Sorry, I forgot to take my hand down. That actually, I'm fine, thanks.
Oh, that's from before. Sorry. Dr. McCall.
Thanks. Yeah, I just had a question about the sports field study and the work around or the progress on the new artificial turf. I asked about it when the management report came up last meeting. And just based on what's provided here in the report, it seems that the emphasis has really shifted to updating the 2008 field study over doing the artificial turf location, financing, and partnership opportunities aspect of the original motion. And I just want to confirm that my interpretation of that is correct, that we're not doing it concurrently anymore, but doing the field study piece first. And also just looking at the timeline, I would assume that if this is meant to inform the 2023 strategic plan, that we would be impacting the 2024 financial plans. Were we to proceed with that?
Thank you. Over to Doug.
Thank you, through the chair. In order for us to gauge where the artificial turf may or may not be located and the need for it, I think the field study is going to provide a lot of information into that. However, we are with the consultants. They have engaged an engineering firm as part of their team, and they're directed as early as July to start working on location analysis for that piece. So I'd say the work's will come out in the final report with recommendations of a field site location. So in that sense, it will be done concurrently, and those options will be available for you at your strategic planning session if you so choose to continue to proceed down the path of looking at artificial turf fields in this community.
Great, thanks for that clarification. And so if it proceeds on time and the next board chooses to continue on with the work, could it inform the 2023 financial plan?
Mr. Chair, we make that commitment as staff that we, in our presentation of the initial financial plan for 2023, will consider the ability for us to react to the priorities. If there are priorities that need a more immediate response, we will look at ways of providing funding there to act on immediate priorities that may fall out of that in the year 2023. So we make that commitment.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions? Great. Good job to staff. It's a lot to package and to think about, but we'll, I guess it'll make for a busy strategic session next year. And I appreciate that Dr. McCollum's comments from last meetings around turf field were not lost. And it seems like that's starting in July, starting to look at locations. And with that, this is just an item for receipt. All in favor? And that's unanimous. And next is impact of vaccination order first. Dr. Grant and Moraine, over to staff.
Thank you very much. And Jennifer Sabin will present this report.
Thank you. Through the chair. Staff are here today to provide the Regional District Recreation Commission with information in response to the delegate presentation to the Commission dated March 15th, 2022 regarding the impact of the vaccine orders. Under new business on May 10th, the Commission was requested to bring forward a report in response to the delegation that appeared before the March 15th Rec Commission regarding restrictions at the Regional District Recreation facilities as a result of provincial and public health measures related to COVID-19. There are two requests that came forward through this presentation for the CDRD. to create an anti-discrimination bylaw to protect access to recreation for all and financially reimburse the taxpayers who have been denied service. During COVID, CVRD is not the lead agency. We take direction from the province and the provincial health officers. So through the pandemic and into today's timeframe, the CVRD continues to follow the provincial regulations and the provincial health officer. So those restrictions are made by the provincial health officer under the Public Health Act. A bit of a key point for everybody to understand is that these restrictions are temporary and with justification. Local government taxation is impactful on homeowners, but must be considered in light of the service CVRD delivers. Recreation strives on being inclusive to foster community gatherings in our facilities, and we are sympathetic to the challenges COVID-19 has raised for some of our patrons. The choice of financial reimbursement or membership extensions were offered to those who requested it for the periods where restrictions were made it challenging for patrons to attend our facilities. The CVRD continues to monitor this situation and will work with our provincial and regional partners to ensure safe facilities, programming and services to our communities. And on that note, staff are ready to take questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions or comments? Dr. Hillian?
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to thank staff for the report. I think it was important to follow through, given the delegation that did come. And I appreciate the points that have been raised. I think although the report doesn't speak to it, clearly we're not going to bring in a bylaw that would impact our subservience to provincial health orders. So I think that one pretty much goes without saying. And it also makes sense that you refund people or you extend their passes if they've actually paid for services, but you don't refund their share of taxes because that just doesn't make sense. The facilities are there, they need to be maintained and continued regardless of temporary closures and such. I guess the one question I do have though is how we manage the situation where we are required to impose restrictions on people who use a facility, but not on those who operate it. And I'm just wondering if staff could speak to that, because I think that left us somewhat vulnerable in some of the public view.
Thank you. Over to staff.
Through the chair, the provincial health restrictions had always been for the public versus the staff. WorkSafe does do their assessment, and they do provide guidance to organizations and businesses on how to ensure that staff remain safe. So for us, following WorkSafe was our priority.
Thank you. I do have some comments in the proposal for the commission, in that I think it's legitimate to say that we have to follow provincial health orders, but on many other issues, we also advocate to the province. I know that many inconsistencies were observed by both the commission and staff, and also a lack of consistency over time and changes between sports. I would propose, if it's supported, that we write a letter from the Recreation Commission to the relevant authority of the province, asking in future pandemic for greater consistency, both over time and across activities, and also for consideration of the recreational needs of unvaccinated people. Is there anybody that would be willing to entertain this kind of motion that I'm just making? I guess I'll turn this into a motion now. Is that okay? Maybe looking for a second.
You are on receipt of
On the
the
receipt,
report.
that's right. Thank you. Thank you, Russell. Okay, so any further comments on receipt? Dr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to circle back on that because I've been asked many times. It's kind of the height of hypocrisy where we deny people access to a facility where the people working in the facility are unvaccinated. I know we can try to square the circle, but just to let you know in the public, that is not a really good issue. I know it's beyond our control, but I just want you to know that it definitely strains our credibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the issue? So let's dispense with receipt. All in favor of the staff? That's unanimous. And I guess I can move from the chair. Sure. I'll move that we write to the relevant authorities asking for greater consistency in future pandemics and also to better consider the recreational needs of unvaccinated people. Thank you. Any discussion or comments? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. And I can't see Will Cole Hamilton online right now. Anyone opposed? I guess you can speak up. Oh, there he is. You in favor or opposed? In favor.
I raised my hand, but yes, I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, we can't see you. Okay, so that passes unanimously. Oh, okay. Okay. Next is the track and field accessibility path options for. Oh, did you? You did have something in between? Okay, yeah. Before we move the report, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious whether this report was going back to the folks who came as the delegation, so they know that there's follow-up.
Yeah, I can, working with staff, I can commit to send them both a link to our YouTube and also to the report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, so next, back to the track and field accessibility path option. Thank you, Dr. Grant. Second. Thank you, Dr. Kettler, and over to staff.
Thank you. And Doug DeMarzo, General Manager of Community Services, will present this report.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think it's important to recognize that our track, sports and field facilities at Vanier currently do have a small accessible barrier being a steep slope, despite some improvements made in the past to help modify accessibility challenges. As such, we're looking at improving that short section of pathway where the ramp comes down and meets the existing path for a cost not exceeding about $16,000. The school district and CBRD have an operating agreement that looks at sharing 50-50 in some of those capital costs. So the school district's in position to contribute. And one of the recommendations here also looks at the way the CBRD can contribute. Should be noted though, we will be working with the accessibility committee, but the expectations at this stage are just to provide the very basic foundation of those accessible grades and not to meet the full requirements of ADA standards, which would require a much larger project, including many modifications to a ramp and stairs and other existing infrastructure. It was always the intention of the CVRD and the school district to look at modifying accessibility when the field house project was done. That would allow us to use the overburden and soils for grade changes there. That will still be in place if that field house is built. And we will look to complete an overall site enhancement for accessibility at that stage. So in summary, it's improved, but it's not perfect, but it'll get people to where they need to be within the ADA standards for grading if we move forward with this $16,000 project.
Thank you. And it's worth noting Dr. Hillian's advocacy on this. So over to you, Dr. Hillian.
Thank you, Chair. I did have the opportunity to visit the track a couple of weeks ago with a member of the Accessibility Committee, and which just confirmed the challenges that somebody in a mobility scooter would have getting there. So I'm very pleased that the staff have taken this up with the school district once again. And I appreciate that we don't always get the Cadillac version of these things, but I think that there's a symbolism there that that we can achieve for a relatively minor cost. And I'm pleased to hear that the Accessibility Committee will be involved in looking at the project. They will also point out to you that the lip where the gate allows access to the existing path that goes down to the turf field also presents a bit of an impediment. Anyway, overall, I'm very, very pleased with this turn of events, and thanks, staff.
That's great. Thanks, Dr. Hillian. And I did have a call with Dr. Trustee Howe on Friday, and SC Trustee Wade had to leave for another meeting. But Trustee Howe was also really pleased that the staff of the school district was collaborative and with our staff. So it's great to see that process, but we'll still have to consider our financial contribution to this. Anybody wants to speak further on this matter? No, we're good. So let's dispense with receipt. All in favor? And there is a recommendation. Dr. Hillian and Director Grant, thank you so much that we contribute, that we fund based on a 50-50 cost share of approximately 16,000 total costs with the SD 71, and further that the financial plan be amended as such. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. And that passes unanimously. And with that, we'll have a motion to go in camera. Grant and Morin, and